We live in a time where privacy is considered weakness and exposure is called connection. People post their goals, their pain, their relationships, hoping someone will understand, support, or validate them. But the Stoic doesn't need that. He understands that the more you reveal, the more control you give away. And when you give people access to your mind, your plans, your struggles, they begin to influence what should belong only to you. Stillness is built in silence. Peace is protected by boundaries. There are things in life that should remain sacred, not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting your energy. The Stoic doesn't speak to be seen. He speaks with intention. And many times that means not speaking at all. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your inner world. What you share becomes a doorway. The more open it is, the easier it is for others to walk in, to disturb, to manipulate. That's not paranoia, it's wisdom. If you want to move with power, protect the things that stabilize you. In this video, we'll go through 5 areas of life that should stay private. Not to isolate you, but to make you unshakable in a world that demands your attention. The Stoics taught that restraint is not weakness, but wisdom. When you choose silence over reaction, you're not backing down, you're stepping above. Because every time you react emotionally, you surrender control. You give away your power. But when you remain still, when you hold the line, people feel it. They begin to see that you're operating on a different level, one that doesn't answer to provocation, approval, or chaos. What you share becomes a doorway. The more open it is, the easier it is for others to walk in, to disturb, to manipulate. That's not paranoia, it's wisdom. If you want to move with power, protect the things that stabilize you. In this video, we'll go through 5 areas of life that should stay private. Not to isolate you, but to make you unshakable in a world that demands your attention. Keeping your goals to yourself doesn't make them small. It makes them sacred. The more people you invite into your vision, the more noise you introduce. Every opinion, every expectation, every bit of unsolicited advice starts to pull you in directions that are not yours. And slowly, what was once pure becomes compromised. So move without noise, build without praise, and let your results arrive before your words ever do. The second thing you should keep private is your struggles. Pain is personal, but today it's often turned into performance. People post every setback, every emotional dip, every hardship, hoping for comfort, for recognition, for sympathy. But the Stoic doesn't seek strength from sympathy. He seeks clarity through solitude. He sits with his pain, learns from it, and lets it shape him quietly. This doesn't mean you suppress what you feel. It means you're selective with who you let in. Not everyone who listens deserves access. Some will judge you, some will weaponize your weakness, and some will simply enjoy seeing you lower your guard. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The moment you hand your pain to others, you risk losing that power. You begin to influence not by force, but by gravity. People notice when you don't flinch, when you're unshaken by drama, insult, or expectation. They begin to question their own noise. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their instability, their need to speak, their lack of control. And the more they see it, the more they respect you. Because power that doesn't need to speak is the kind of power people fear, admire, and trust. Subscribe and hit the bell, because true growth starts with what you choose to hear. The third thing you should keep private is your wealth. What you earn, what you own, what you spend. In a world obsessed with showing off success, the Stoic understands that true power doesn't flaunt. It doesn't need to. Wealth, when displayed, invites comparison, envy, expectation. But wealth, when protected, becomes peace. Seneca, one of the wealthiest Stoics in history, lived modestly and warned against the illusion of status. He said, "Wealth is the slave of the wise and the master of fools." When you reveal your financial life, people begin to treat you differently. They project value based on what they see, not who you are. Some will want to use you, others will want to outdo you. Either way, you lose control over how you're perceived, and over time, how you perceive yourself. Because constant exposure builds a false identity, one based on things, not principles. Keeping your financial status private isn't about secrecy, it's about strategy. It allows you to move freely, to focus on real growth, and to avoid the trap of external validation. Money should serve you, not define you. When no one knows what you have, they can't expect, manipulate, or judge. And that silence becomes every environment you enter is filled with noise. People competing to be heard, to be right, to be validated. But the Stoic doesn't compete in that arena. He doesn't raise his voice to win. He doesn't explain himself to feel seen. He simply exists in full command of his space, grounded in who he is, and that alone shifts the atmosphere. People may not understand it at first, but they feel it. They feel the discipline, the focus, the silence that speaks louder than ego ever could. When you choose silence, you also choose patience. You allow things to unfold without interference. You observe how people reveal themselves, not just through what they say, but how quickly they say it, how emotionally they respond, how much control they lose trying to be right. Meanwhile, you conserve your energy. You let others expend theirs, and by the end, you're still steady, still composed, still in control. That's why silence is a form of leadership. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that earns trust. People follow those who don't need to be followed. They listen to those who don't speak often. And when you've trained yourself to resist the urge to prove, defend, or react, you become exactly that kind of leader. The quiet presence that moves with clarity, purpose, and strength. Most people will never master silence because they're addicted to being seen, addicted to being right, addicted to noise. But the few who do, they operate on a different frequency. They don't argue, they don't chase, they don't over-explain. They lead without forcing, influence without noise. And when they speak, people listen. Because it's rare, because it's earned, because it means something. You have a choice. Keep reacting like everyone else, or start living with the discipline to hold your ground. To speak less, to observe more, to be unmoved in the face of chaos and unshaken in the presence of ego. That's what makes a man truly powerful. Not how much he says, but how little he needs to. When was the last time your silence made someone rethink everything? Not your anger, not your arguments, just your stillness. If this made you think, subscribe now and hit the bell, because real power doesn't shout. It listens, waits, and moves with intention. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, stay silent when it matters most.